Welcome. How are you guys today? I hope you're doing well. We're going to talk about writing clinical study protocols. I've been doing this for over 25 years. I really love to write protocols. I like how you have to work to connect everything. We're going to try to get as much in 3 hours as we can. It gets a little technical. Typically, I do this as a 2-day live course, so I've tried to condense it and make it hopefully as informative as possible. So we're going to talk about the overall structure of the protocol, some of the regulatory requirements. What do you have to include in the protocol? Things like establishing indications, understanding the types of studies so that you know how to actually organize the protocol in appropriate fashion so you can get your data collected so that it can be analyzed. Protocol design, what type of blinding, randomization, bias methods, or methods of eliminating bias really. How to identify the hypothesis, understanding the difference between the safety section, efficacy section, how do you establish this in your protocol. Inclusion-exclusion criteria, the schedule of assessments or schedule of events, whichever you call it, and ways of determining how to deal with adverse and serious adverse event reporting. So just a few basic premises. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because most of you probably know this, but I think it's important to just talk about some specifics and some definitions. One of the things that's important to understand about a protocol is it's a legal document. That's one thing I think that people don't really think about. As writers, we get really into the information, whether we're reporting data in a clinical study report or we're actually writing the protocol and figuring out what has to be done. We don't really think about the legalities of it. So we all know that a protocol is something that really outlines the entire plan for a clinical study. And it's designed to answer specific research questions, which is also important. And every protocol and every clinical trial has to do with safety. Safety is always collected. But what we have to also remember that it's a legal document, it's a binding legal document, and that's a very important part of what we do. So what is the goal of the protocol? Why are we writing this? All right, so we're going to talk about what and how to write and for whom we are writing. And we have to remember with any regulatory document, and certainly with a protocol, if it's well written, it means everyone has the same takeaway. So it doesn't matter what background you have, what area you're coming from, everyone should walk away with the same understanding of what the goal is. So what we try to do when we write a protocol is we want to define a process that will allow us to collect data that answers one or more questions. Ideally, any protocol should only ask one major question, but times have changed quite significantly, and more protocols are answering more and more questions and are becoming sort of protocols within protocols where you'll have almost 5 different phase 1 pieces in one protocol sometimes. It doesn't happen so much with phase 3, but there's a lot going on in protocols, so understanding how to connect the dots in a protocol, in my opinion, is one of the key processes. So it sounds really simple, right? We're just going to define a process for data collection that answers a question or questions. It's not as simple as it sounds, and what we do is not really cutting pasting, which is a lot of what people think we do. You really have to understand a lot of the dynamics of not just the protocol, but the people that you're working with. So you have to know your audience. You have to understand the basics of medical writing, which is different than most other writing we're used to. We have to understand consistency, how to be consistent, when to be consistent. Understanding the regulatory environment, what is required from a regulatory standpoint that you must include and must be aware of. And you have to know what goes where in the protocol. So those are the key issues that we're facing when we're writing a protocol. So our audience, we have a lot of different audience members, okay? We have a lot of different reviewers. We have internal reviewers and collaborators. If you're a sponsor or an independent consultant or somebody working with a client, you have all the internal people that are going to review your protocol. Maybe you or the client is working with a CRO. They may be involved in some way. They may review the protocol. They may even be part of the writing process of the protocol, but they will certainly administer the study conduct. So this is also part of your audience. They have to understand what their job is out in the field, right? The site personnel, obviously, this is really your end user. Your investigator, your study coordinators, your site study staff. These people are the end users, and these people clearly have to understand what's going on in the protocol. More importantly, in multi-site studies, because if one site interprets the protocol one way and another site interprets it a different way, you may have data collected differently. That's going to affect the end result, which is the data that are collected. So it's very important, again, to have that same takeaway message. Your IRBs or independent ethics committees are also going to review the protocol for protection of human safety. So it's very important that they understand clearly what the risks are and what the potential sort of safety issues might be so they can make an informed decision. And obviously you have your regulatory authorities. Here in the U.S. we have the FDA, which I think we're all familiar with, and the three major divisions, CDER for drugs, CBER for biologics, and CDRH for devices. There's also a tobacco products division and some other divisions, but these are the three bigs.